Hello and welcome to Out of State DMing. I am your host, lluksblackheart. Today we'll be doing more discussions about 3.5 D&D and feats. Just like I covered in last week's episode, having a slight monitor problem. Because we covered over a lot of the prerequisites for a lot of the feats, and I even went over some of them. Mainly covering such feats as like acrobatics, agile, alertness, animal affinity, the main ones. I'll be hitting some more for today. And there's a chance that depending on how much details I go into will depend on how if we actually cover all of the feats. Because again, feats can be extremely straightforward. Like, not much explain. Like for instance, this using cleave as an example. That simply just lets you, if you down a person, you get another swing. It happens to be not only within your reach, but adjacent to the person you just swung. So there's really not much details, other than you get it once per round and uses the same bonuses. Combat casting helps people who use spell-like abilities and or casting spells. Because if you cast a spell while in a threatened space, they get attack of opportunity. But if you cast on the defensive, you get to make a concentration check. If you pass a concentration check, there is no attack of opportunity, and the spell goes off normally. Combat casting gives you a +4 to combat checks. Well, combat checks, 2 concentration checks to cast on the defensive. Combat expertise is I think we already went over that one, but I'll recover it anyways. Pretty self-explanatory on how it works. You trade attack bonus for a defense bonus, and it counts as a dodge bonus. And it goes whatever's higher, your base attack or 5. So you cannot get a hit yourself for worse than a -5. Even if you're like, I have a base attack of 15. It's like, well, you can still only go to 5. Combat reflexes is another good one. As you can see, no prerequisites. But it can increase the number of attack of opportunities you get by an additional amount equal to your dexterity modifier. And it even gives you an example. So if you have a dex of 15 and you have this feat, instead of making 1 attack of opportunity, you can make up to 3 attacks of opportunity. Now, it's still limited to 1 attack of opportunity versus a single target. So if one person runs through you, it doesn't matter if you have like 7 attacks. You only can make 1 attack against them. But if, let's say, 3 people ran through your threatened space or did something to provoke an attack of opportunities, you get to make an attack against each one because, well, each one provokes, you have a +2 from your dex, and voila. So it can really help you just deal with multiple targets. It's also not that many people take it. Mainly because attack opportunities aren't something that are constantly being done. Because a lot of combatants are either A, straightforward and they're attacking you, or B, are already doing things to counteract that by not casting spells adjacent to you, not shooting while you're next to them, not moving through your threatened space, either because they're smart enough to know better or what they're doing isn't doing any of that. Craft magical arms and armor. You do have to be a 5th level caster to do this, and it does let you enchant weapons or a suit of armor or a shield. And the time is pretty straightforward. For every 1,000 gold pieces the armor the magic has, For instance, a normal +1 weapon is a 2 grand. You'll take 2 days to do the enchanting. But you also have to remember, you must spend 1/25th of the feature's total price in XP and use raw materials costing half the amount of the total price. So, for instance, to enchant an item to to make it a +1, because it costs 2 grand, so it's 2 days. You're using half that in raw materials, so you're spending 1,000 gold pieces just to make it, but then it's 1/25th the price, which isn't which isn't necessarily a crap ton, but at the same time it adds up. So if you do any of the actual math, you can end up spending a lot of your XP just to make that. Yeah, you can also mend a broken magical item, suit of armor, or shield, if it is one that you had made. Doing so costs half the XP, the raw materials, and half the time it would take to craft that. So if it's a broken magical item, I can still fix it. So it's right there. Some DMs may let you do other things to mend the broken item, but it's right there. Crafting rods, 9th level requirement, and it's pretty much the same process. It's 1 day per 1,000 gold pieces, 1/25th the XP cost of the total cost, and half the base cost in raw resources. So it's pretty much the cost and time is the same, and that's pretty much the same for pretty much all of the craft magical item feats. Opens the item creation feats. There's like, even for like craft staff, it does the same thing. Craft wands, same thing. Craft wonders items, same thing. It's just what level it takes to get access to it, on top of what you're actually trying to do. And it is a way to try to cut down on cost. Because some magical items cost a lot of money to actually acquire it. So you're spending all this money over here to make it, which is half that. Another thing to note, and this is something it doesn't actually cover here, is the item you're creating, it tells you what spells you need. Because you can't just willy-nilly rub a sword and it suddenly does all this stuff here. It directly states, if you want this enchantment on this item, these are the spells you need. Which directly tells you if you need to go get scrolls or another magical item that has X amount of uses of it. Because if you don't have access to the spell yourself, then you have to outsource it, which could cost you additional money. Because the money to get a scroll or another item that you get access to it is not included in the actual costs for it. Which is somewhat silly. Just some things you would assume that the price you're spending to make this also includes all of this here. But it's not, and one of the ways to tell is by looking at the fact that if you can cast a spell yourself, the only thing you're spending on the spell is any raw materials needed to cast the spell, which can be extremely, extremely cheap. But that doesn't decrease how much it costs to get the raw materials. Then there's if you can't cast the spell because you don't, because it's not in your spell book if you're a wizard, or memorized if you're a sorcerer or a bard, or it's not a divine spell that you're capable of casting if you're a cleric or a paladin or a druid. So it's like, I need to outsource this. So you're not only spending 50% of what it costs just to make the item, but you're spending an additional fee to get the scroll for the spell to be cast. So that's a lot of things a lot of people don't actually tell you because they don't think about it. Uh, and there is people out there that will try to argue it, will try to debate it, but all you have to do is look at the item, and it tells you what what spells are needed to create that item. It tells you what spells right there. So it does get frustrating when players decide to not actually fully invest in doing the proper research. And not to mention the fact that this is a time consuming thing, just like with the craft items skill that takes time. This takes time. Even if you're trying to create an extremely cheap or an extremely simple magical item, at minimum, no matter what, it's a day. Even if it's like, well, if I do this, it's only worth like 50 gold pieces. That's nowhere close to 1,000. It's still a day. It's still a day. There's no workarounds there, and it simply it gives you no workaround. Not even if it's like brew potion, it's still no workaround on if it's worth under 1,000. Do you decrease the time? Nope. It still wants it to be at minimum 1 day. So if you don't have the proper downtime, you can't do it. Because that's at minimum 8 hours of your time you're taking up making it. Which, if you don't include sleeping or anything like that, that your DM may take DM prerogatives on letting you do a little bit more. But it's not, because you're using magic, it's not something that's simple, just wave your hand, it's done. Deceitful is another skill feat that's straight up constant bonus to diplomacy and forgery. Deflect arrows is slightly complicated, and it's mainly a monk thing. And the thing that a lot of people forget about deflect arrows is it states you need at least one free hand. If both your hands have something in it, you can't deflect it, because the feat wants you to have one free hand, which includes holding nothing. Your hand has to be free. And it's once per round. When you're normally hit by a ranged weapon, you may deflect it, so you take no damage. You must be aware of the attack and not flat-foot. Attempting to deflect a ranged weapon doesn't count as an actual action, because it says that right there. Usually massive ranged weapons such as boulders hurled by giants, or a ranged attack generated by a spell effect such as Melf's Acid Arrow, can't be deflected. You wouldn't believe how many people go, it technically is a ranged attack, I deflect it. It's like, no, it states that someone hits you with Melf's Acid Arrow, or a Produce Flame, or a Lightning Bolt. No, you can't deflect it. Scorching Ray may require a ranged touch attack, but you can't deflect it. And something massive, like uses the boulder hurled by a giant. It's like, no, you're not a giant. You don't have the feature to catch that boulder, because yes, there's giants that actually do go. Like, we're going to play a rock toss where they literally take the same boulders they use to hurl at things to cause them harm. They'll literally go, oh, hey, thank you, I caught it, now I get to use it. Death Hands, not straightforward. Bonus to sleight of hand and use rope. Die Hard is a good and bad feat. I say that because it lets you stay conscious while also being in the negative. Because if you're reduced to -1 to -9 hit points, you automatically become stable. You don't have to roll the percentile to see if you lose a hit point each round or not. And reduced to negative hit points, you may choose to act if you're disabled rather than dying. You may make this decision as soon as you are reduced to negative hit points, even if it isn't your turn. You do not choose to act as if you're disabled. You immediately fall unconscious. So pretty much, if you want to stay up, you can stay up. But you're disabled, so you get the disabled condition, which when we start covering conditions, I'll go into that. But you can still be up and doing things while in there. While using this feat, you take either a single move action or standard action each turn, but not both. You cannot do anything as a full round action, which pretty much means you get only one thing. And that also includes things that the DM deems as strenuous, including some free actions such as casting a quicken spell. You take 1 point of damage after completing the act. If you reach -10, you're immediately dead. That's a key thing. It doesn't stop you from dying, it lets you stay conscious. But you slowly are dying because it does stay. Like, you can take a move action without further injuring yourself, but if you perform any standard actions, you take that 1 point of damage. Which means if you're swinging a sword, strenuous action, take 1 damage. And anything the DM deems as strenuous. So like anything swinging action, technically casting a spell, can be strenuous, so you lose a point. And once you hit -10, you're dead. The reason why I say it's bad is the fact that if you are still standing up, the monster will continue to try to hurt you. If it's hitting you enough and or damaging you enough that you drop to negative, you're already put in a very, very bad spot that if you get hit anymore, it can easily tip you into you're dead. So 9 out of 10 times, it will be simply good to just simply drop it unconscious. You may not be able to do anything. You may sit there and wait for someone to heal you, or for the battle to be done, so that way party members can still save you. But at the same time, you have the option of not setting yourself up to die. So that's why I actually don't like that feat, because the amount of people who go, it's great, I'll keep going, and then they die because they reach -10, and it's like, you killed yourself. The feat Diligent, it's another simple one, +2 to a bonus to appraisal and decipher script. So that's good. Dodge, this is another one a lot of people like for some reason think it's constantly active. It's not. You get a free action on your turn. You designate a target as your dodge bonus, and that bonus stays until your next turn, and it's only against that target. So it's like, it is really good because it makes you harder to hit, but if an opponent that is not your designated dodge attacks you, you don't get that bonus. Because, like I said, there's plenty of people out there that I've played with and ran games for. They're like, I have dodge. Like, you declare dodge against this person over here. Therefore, the person over here, which isn't this person, you don't get the +1 against. I've also run across people that assume that it's a constant bonus, so they get against everything, even if they don't declare it. It's like, no, read it. You're not reading it. You're assuming it's something else that it's not. It is a fighter bonus feat, so fighters can pick that. And Power Spell, I love this spell. I love this feat. It increases the pretty much the damage or the numeric effects of a spell by 50%. So like a magic missile becomes a little bit more effier because it's a die 4 plus 1, but you take whatever you roll and you add 50% of it, so it's at minimum an additional plus 1 because the die 4 plus 1, minimum 2, maximum 5, so you're getting somewhere between a bonus 1 to a bonus 2 damage, so it's somewhere between 3 to 7 damage, which is really good, with the only drawback that it increases the spell slot requirement by 2. So first level spell becomes a third level spell, not for DCs, but for what level you need to cast it at. Which is another thing people, for some weird reason, confuse, because metamagic feats don't make the spell harder to resist. They just make the spell more effective at whatever that feat does. For instance, this one, you get 50% more damage. But if you put it on a fireball, which is normal level 3 spell, the DC is still off of a level 3, not level 5. There's a different feat for that, which we'll eventually get to, but there's a different feat for making the DCs for things harder. Endurance I like because it lets you sleep in medium and light armor, so you're no longer fatigued. You get a plus 4 on a lot of different saves, like swim checks to resist non-lethal damage, as I need to double check that real quick. Constitution checks to continue running. Constitution checks made to avoid non-lethal damage from forced marches. To help hold your breath. Made to avoid non-lethal damage from starvation and or thirst. Fortitude attempts made to resist non-lethal damage from hot or cold environments. Helps against suffocation. So it does quite a bit to help you not suffer ill effects from multiple viewpoints. Because again, it's like force marching, get it forward to that. Resisting damage, non-lethal damage from over swimming, got that. Suffocation, starvation, thirst, heat or too hot, too cold, want to sleep in medium light armor, it got your back. So it's a fantastic feat. It's also a feat a lot of people just don't take because they go, oh, I get some bonuses to some things. Like, it's a plus 4 to multiple things that a DM could ignore, or when it comes time to actually doing it, it's like, okay, yeah, don't you love that plus 4? And again, any bonus is a good bonus, and a plus 4 that's a good bonus. That and being able to sleep in light and medium armor does help you out in the long run. Because it means if you're resting and you get attacked, you don't have to don your armor. Because armor can take quite a bit of time to don. Enlarge spell is another meta magic feat. It only increases it by the spell by 1, and what it does is it increases how far away you can launch a spell. For instance, close spells are now 50 plus 5 feet per level. That may not seem necessarily very far, but 50 feet baseline is decent. So in fact, normally close range spells are 25 feet with additional 5 feet per 2 levels. So a level 2 caster can only go to 30 feet. But if you enlarged it at for level 2, instead of it being 30 feet, it's now 60 feet. So you're doubling the range. Because it doubles it for everything. You can apply it to spells like Fireball. Fireball's range on how far you can drop it is normally 400 with a plus 40 per level. But with this added to it, it's now 800 plus 80 per level. So you can be literally really, really, really far away and go, there's something bad I want to burn all the way over there. Burn it. That's why if you ever heard the terminology artillery spells, Fireball, technically in its base form, counts as an artillery spell because you can be really, really, really far away and still blow something up. This just makes it so you can go farther. Here's another good magic feat. Eschew materials. What it does is it lets you ignore spell components that are costing 1 gold or less. Which means there's a lot of spells out there that petty cash is needed to pretty much get the spell components. Because like, a couple copper for some dried... My brain doesn't work. For some dried dragonflies for that spell, so I can cast that spell a bunch. This goes, if it's equal to or less than this here, you don't care. So it makes magic users go from, wow, I need to make sure I buy a lot of stuff, to, unless it's super expensive, I don't care. Exotic weapon proficiency. This one is good, but only if you're trying to use an exotic weapon. Like the Dwarven Orgosh, or the Orc Double Axe. Unless you're a dwarf or an orc, you can't use those weapons without having this feat. Because if you were to use it, you suffer a -4 penalty for not being proficient with it because they're exotic weapons. If you take exotic weapon proficiency for like the Orc Double Axe, you can now use the Orc Double Axe. Or the repeating crossbow. So it does help remove that -4 penalty, which anyone should love, because not having a penalty is better than having the penalty. Extended spell, another good one. It does increase the spell slot by 1, but the duration is doubled. It doesn't affect spells that you have to concentrate on, or instantaneous, or are permanent, because those ones, the concentration is you have to concentrate on it. Instantaneous, it just happens and it's done. And permanent is it's already going to be permanent. So unless something else happens to it, it's already permanent. So it's only for things that actually have a duration. Like invisibility lasts 1 minute per caster level. So doing an extended invisibility spell, instead of it being 1 minute per caster level, it's now 2 minutes. So you can be invisible for extra longer. Extra turning, you have to be able to turn undead in order to actually use this. And what it does is each time you take this feat, you can use your ability to turn or rebuke 4 more times than per day than normal. This normally it's 3 plus charisma modifier for a cleric's turning ability. This goes, now it's 7 plus that, but it's each time. And it does state that you gain this, you can gain extra turning multiple times. Its effects stack. So if you take it 3 times, well, that's 12 more uses of your turning you get. So right there, you get a 15 plus your charisma. Now you're probably wondering why that's important. When you get into expanded feats and or certain campaign settings, having a lot of turning attempts does help out a lot, especially when you're fighting large numbers of undead. Because once you get to a certain level, a lot of undead start to fear you as a cleric. Because, well, like we went over, with cleric, if your level is twice or higher than their hit die, you automatically destroy them. So if you're fighting like an army of undead, a cleric who has, a high enough level cleric who has a bunch of turning attempts can decimate that army by simply going, here's my action, 30-foot cone, turn undead. 5 step back because a bunch just rushed in, turn undead. This rinse and repeat. So being able to turn a bunch more easily lets you affect an entirely huge amount of undead. Far shot is another good one, but not necessarily if you're indoors. But it's mainly used, well, in my experience, it's mainly really good use if you're trying to use thrown weapons, because thrown weapons have a horrible, horrible range. So when we get to going over some of the weapons, I'll be able to give you examples of what this feat works with. This for normal ranged weapons such as like crossbows or bows, you increase the range by 50%. If it's a thrown weapon, you double the range, which may not seem very good to say. You don't need to do long range stuff. It helps out a lot, like a lot. Uh, Forge Ring, it's another item creation feat that does the same things as all the other ones. Uh, 1,000 gold pieces per day. 1 day per 1,000 gold pieces. Cost and raw materials is still half the ring's base cost, and you still have to have 1/25th the XP spent. Great Cleave is really great. So if you bring preregs of Cleave, power attack, base attack plus 4, 4, and a strength of at least 13, it works just like Cleave, but it has no limitations on how far you can go. So it's pretty much it. They said normal Cleave is you down a person, you get one attack against this adjacent person here. You can't take it does say you can't do any form of movements or anything outside of it, because it's like, okay, yay. This goes, well, I have a bunch of enemies within reach. I down this one, I hit, 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 I down this one. So it lets you pretty much keep going if you happen to actually be in a position to pull it off. So you can smack a lot of things a lot easier. So it makes cleaving through small groups or even large groups of generally weak creatures. And when I say generally weak, I literally mean like low level creatures like basic goblins or orcs that normally don't have more than 10 hit points. Cleave and Great Cleave makes you just short work of those. Great Fortitude increases your fortitude saving throw, which if anyone decides to say you're wasting a feat, look at them like they're silly, because your saving throws can never be too high. Greater spell focus, just like spell focus when we get to that, when you have it for that specific school of magic, all the spells you cast for it, their DCs go up by 1. You're probably thinking, well, even though it stacks with spell focus, a +1 to a DC isn't that much. Well, you have to remember it's for all spells from that school that use DCs, not a single spell. All spells. So when you find certain feats like this that affect an entire group of things, you may not think that a 1 is all that impressive, but it's a 1 to multiple things. Just like spell penetration, which does stack with greater spell penetration, which does stack with spell penetration. It gives you a +2 to caster level checks to overcome spell resistance, and it does stack with spell penetration. So, which also gives like a +2. Well, we'll find it in a moment. So you can still get a big bonus. So that's really, really good. But you also have to remember, not all spells can be resisted by spell resistance. Some of them go, nope, we don't care, and bypass it. So if you pick your spells correctly, you don't need to worry about this. And once you get a certain level, unless you're trying to fight really, really outrageous, powerful things, a lot of SRs, you're going to just reach a point where you don't need this feat to actually have a chance of beating it or even consistently beat it. Because sometimes there's things that, oh, it's only 15, which is considered a tough DC, but you're going to reach a point where a 15 is not going to be very hard for you to beat. Then you're going to have to go, well, a 20 is going to be hard for me to beat, then a 25, then a 30. So as you go up and you're fighting more powerful things, a lot of their SRs are going to be high. But there's also the fact that when we eventually go to a monster section like Assessed Monsters, there's a bunch of the monsters that you'll be surprised about how low or how high their SRs are. But that's a great feat for low levels. Greater 2-weapon fighting works just like with 2-weapon fighting. Well, you need 2-weapon fighting and improved 2-weapon fighting to get this. But what it does is it gives you a third offhand attack. Because 2-weapon fighting decreases the penalties for swinging with 2 weapons. Improved gives you a second attack with your offhand. And greater gives you a third attack with your offhand. So you can end up getting a lot of attacks. So by the time you're like an 11th level fighter, if you have all 3 of these feats, you can sit there with like a long sword and a short sword, and you get like 3 attacks with your base hand, and then 3 attacks with your offhand, which is 6 attacks, which is a lot of attacks. And that's not counting any other shenanigans your DM lets you get away with. Greater weapon focus. I will note now that a lot of the graders and improves are going to be hitting, if you can't tell, before we get to some of the base ones, like 2-weapon fighting and weapon focus and weapon specialization. Because this is alphabetically organized, we're going to hit some of the bigger ones before we get to the lesser ones, and some of the lesser ones we may just do a brief skip over because it's like the greater ones or improved ones are just are the same thing but slightly better. Like greater weapon focus, you need weapon focus and be an 8th level fighter, and have weapon specialization with all of someone. So what it does is it gives a +1 with that weapon that you have normal weapon focus for. So you end up with both the feats, and you get a total of +2. This weapon focus is a +1. Greater gives you another +1, so you get a +2. They may not seem very big, but again, any bonus is a great bonus, especially if you're trying to do certain feat combos like 2-weapon fighting, if you have an offhand weapon and 2-weapon fighting, you get a -2 to both attacks. But if you have weapon focus and greater weapon focus with both those weapons, like not a great sword, but a long sword and a short sword, well, if you have weapon focus and greater with both those weapons, the +2 you're getting is counteracting the -2 you're getting. So it ends up evening out. Then it's if you decide just to swing with 1, well, you're just getting an additional +2 to the base. So you're not hurting yourself in the short or long one. You're actually benefiting yourself greatly because you're now just getting better. And it's the same thing for weapon specialization and greater weapon specialization, which you need to have weapon focus and greater weapon focus and stuff in the same weapon in order to get these, because greater weapon specialization is a 12th level fighter feat only. But what it does is it gives you a +2 to all damage rolls for that weapon, and it stacks with the base weapon specialization. So if you, by the time you're 12th level and you have both of these feats and both the weapon focus feats with, let's say, a long sword, you get an additional +2 to +2 to attack rolls and a +4 to damage rolls, which in any sense is really, really great. And because the fighters do get a lot of feats, because they do, and these are fighter specific feats, you can go pretty much the same route, and as you're getting them, you can have all 4 of those feats for the long sword, and you can have another 4 for the short sword. So you're counteracting a 2-weapon fighting while also at the same time augmenting it by +4 damage. Heightened spell. This is the one that actually increases the spell's effective level. So instead of just increasing the spell slot like the other ones did by increasing by 1 or 2, this one actually sets it as that level of a spell. So for instance, if you had access to 9th level spells and you really wanted your fireball to be hard to resist, it's a 3rd level spell. So now you heighten it to 9th level. It's not only taking that 9th level slot because of heightened, it's now effectively a 9th level spell, which means when the saving throws go through, the base isn't a 13 plus your main casting ability, it's 19, because it actually raises it. Now, if you pair this with any other meta magic feat, magic feat, the increase in the DC for the spell only goes off of by how you heightened it for heightened spell. For instance, if you try to enlarge your fireball, which, like I said, it increases it by 1, that's a 4th level spell, but then you heighten it to 9th level. It's not going off of 9th level, it's going off of 8th level, because one of those levels is coming from enlarge. So you don't count that one in the DC, you only count what the heightened did. So even though you're dropping it at way too far away way for people to know that you're there, the DC is off of a base 18, not a 19. Improved Bull Rush helps with Bull Rush attempts by giving you another +4 to push back. And when we get to special action stuff, we'll actually be able to go over what Bull Rush does, other than the fact that you can actually push people around. And if you have this feat, you also don't provoke attack of opportunity when you do it. Improved counterspelling. I hate counterspelling. It's stupid. When counterspelling, you may use a spell of the same school that is one or more spell levels higher than the target spell. Thing to note that if you have no idea on what spell they're casting, you can't properly counterspell unless you're trying to counterspell with Dispel Magic or Greater Dispel Magic, because those spells don't care about the school, they just go, I'm countering it, boom. But if you're trying to counteract a fireball, firstly, you have to know it's a fireball in order to actually counteract it, and secondly, you have to have a fireball prepared. What this spell does is you just have to have it come from the same school. So if you have a spell that's at least 4th level or higher from the same school, you can use that instead of fireball to counterspell it. So it does make counterspelling a lot easier, but you still have to know what the person's casting in order to actually properly counterspell. Improved critical. It doubles the crit range of a weapon. For example, it's using the longsword, which is normally a 19 to 20. So if you apply this to it, it becomes a 17 to 20. So it increases it from you needing 2 numbers for it to land in a possible crit to up to 4. Now, you still need to get a nat 20 if you want to auto hit. Critical hits are not the same as auto hits. Nat 20 is a chance for critical and an auto hit. Higher crit range just means if you do hit, there's a chance it's a critical. So don't confuse it with I auto hit because I got a 17. Improved disarm lets you easier for you to literally do exactly what it says, disarm, not by actually removing limbs, but by removing items being held by the opponent, by giving you a +4 to your check. You don't provoke attack opportunities when you try to do it, and you deny the opponent's attempt to be able to disarm you. Because normally you provoke attack opportunity and they get to attempt to reverse if you fail. This goes, nope, you don't get the reverse or the attack opportunity, and I get a bonus, so haha. Improved feint lets you do the feint action in combat and actually be able to pull it off. Because normally if you don't have improved feint, feinting can be quite difficult. And this just literally lets you do it as a move action. Improved grapple. It's really good if you don't really want to be grappled or you want to actually grab people. And it's a +4 regardless if uh, you started the grapple or not. So if you're trying to do the grapple, you get a +4. If something's trying to grapple you, because there's a bundle of creatures out there that's like, oh, it's succeeded the bite attack, and now it gets a free grapple. You go, oh, I get a +4 because I have improved grapple. So that is a good one to take if you know for a fact the DM likes using monsters that do that, or it seems to turn into a trend. Uh, Improved initiative is pretty straightforward. You get a +4 to your initiative checks. This is really good if you want to constantly go first, because a +4 is better than a +0. And trust me when I say there's been multiple characters who went from either going last or not really going in the middle to either being in the middle or actually going first simply because they took improved initiative. Because the only other real way to get your initiative to go up is to get your dexterity to skyrocket. Because that's the basis for your initiatives, is your dexterity bonus. So unless it starts off high, there's a chance monsters and or other bad guys may be going first if they have a good dexterity bonus. Improved Overrun lets you actually properly use the Overrun action, which does also give your chance of succeeding by a +4 to your bonus to knock them down. Improved Precise Shot. This is a good one because if you have Point Blank Shot, Precise Shot, base attack of 11, and a 19 dexterity, you can now ignore cover bonuses. In addition, when you shoot or throw ranged weapon at a grappled opponent, you automatically strike the opponent you have chosen. Let me rephrase that for those. In addition, when you shoot or throw ranged weapons at a grappling opponent, you automatically strike at the opponent you have chosen. Which pretty much means you don't roll for attack. You automatically hit. The only reason I would say roll for attack would be to see if you get a critical or not. But it's I shoot at him, he's grappled, I automatically hit him. So technically it's removing the roll, which means no chance of nat 1s, which is not a failure, but technically means no chance for criticals, because it's going to removing those and opts for an automatic hit. So if you do it correctly and you know someone is trying to be a grappling fanatic, you can go, okay, you take anything you need to do it. I'm going to go and do my best to get improved precise shot. If they go, why? You can go, oh, you grapple them, I auto hit them. So it helps with combos. Or if you know the DM likes using things that grapple, that's a good way to either A, make the DM slightly question whether or not he should or not, or B, try to alter something he's doing, because you're like, okay, grapple my ally. I'm now automatically hitting your monster. And again, that's for range attacks, not melee attacks. It's only range attacks. Improved Shield Bash lets you do keep your shield bonus while you shield bash. Just normally when you shield bash, which can be done with everything but a tower shield, you lose the AC bonus. So you become easier to hit because you swung. Improved Shield Bash lets you still use it as a defensive measure while you actually bash with it. Improved Sunder lets you ignore the attack of opportunity people get against you when you go to sunder their item, while it's held or not. You get additional +4 to the attack roll to actually hit the object, so it makes it easier to make contact and not get swung at. Doesn't actually let you break it easier, but you have an easier time hitting it which is always good if you're trying to just break things. Improved Trip does a lot of things. Uh, for instance, you do not provoke attack of opportunity when you do a trip while you are unarmed. You also gain a +4 on your strength checks to do the trip attempt. If you trip an opponent in melee, you immediately get a melee attack against that opponent as if you hadn't used your attack for the trip attempt. Which pretty much means if you have a weapon that lets you do trips, because that's a key thing. Uh, so, like, let's say a whip, normally not necessarily very good, but it's a reach weapon, so you can reach around people and stuff with it. You can hit the opponent with them, trip it. If you succeed, you immediately now get a free hit attack them, which because they're prone targets grant you additional +4 on melee attacks because they're prone. So you're just not only having an easier time knocking them over, but now you get to actually get a bonus on hitting them. So anyone trying to utilize trips, improved trip is literally the best. Not to mention the fact that getting up from prone provoke attacks of opportunity, which means if there's allies around the target, you knock them down. On that turn, if they go to get up, everyone gets free attacks against them because they provoke attack of opportunity. So you're just setting up the rest of the team to kill the monster a lot easier because you knocked it down and now it goes to get up, they get their free swings, and you just sit there going, see, told you it works. Improved turning lets you turn as if you were one level higher. They may not seem very good, but the checks for turning, the higher your level are, the better. And what this pretty much means is if, let's say, a level 1 cleric takes it, he turns as if he was a level 2 cleric, which means he can now instantly destroy most zombies and skeletons because they're one-hit die creatures normally. So it goes from, I can make them run for a while, to, I have improved turning, so therefore they're dust. There's improved to weapon fighting, which just does something similar to greater, but it's what sets you up to get your second attack. Improved unarmed strike only helps if you're trying to just punch things, because without it, normally you provoke attack of opportunities for using unarmed strikes. So if you're trying to, I just want to punch that person or kick them or slap them or ram my head into them. Well, if you don't have this feat, which if you're a monk, you don't need to have this feat. This monks get it for free. If you don't have this feat, they get a free attack against you. If you have it, you don't. They don't get it. And with it, you get to choose whether or not your blow tests lethal or non-lethal. Because normally, it's non-lethal, which means you can knock someone out. This goes, oh, I'm not trying to knock you out, I'm trying to murder you. Oh, big words. Investigate, +2 to gather information and search checks, so that can help rogues or people just trying to, in general, get information from public settings that are involving a lot of people. Iron Will gives you a bonus to will saving throws, which is good. Leadership does somewhat require looking in the DMG for what you actually get at what points. But what it does is, because it's also you have to be 6th level to take it, is you get a cohort and X amount of followers. The amount of followers and what level, how many of them are certain levels, all depends on your leadership score, which has a lot of factors to it. But this is one of the feats that can easily bog things down. Does all of your followers, not the cohort, but the followers, use NPC classes, not player classes, and depending on what you're trying to do, can extremely extremely slow down everything. Because it may seem good to go, well, I have like 15 level 1 warriors to help us. Well, for starters, that's a lot of things going on your turn. Two, beyond what their starting equipment is, in order for them to get anything that's better, it's coming out of your pocket. Because technically, they don't get a proper share of the treasure. You have to pay them. If you don't, you actually, after a while, you get a condition added to your leadership score, which lowers it, which means you can lose followers, which is never a good thing. The cohort gets to actually be a PC class, and they still don't get a cut of the treasure, so anything you want them to have that the party acquires, you have to go you have to get it, and then you have to give it to them because they don't get a proper share. And they get half the XP you get. So if you get 100 XP, they get 50, not from the collective pool, but whatever you get, they immediately get 50% of it. And their highest level they can get is 2 levels lower than yours. There is an option that the DM can grant. If your leadership score is high enough, you can start with a higher level cohort, but they stay at that level until you get to the point where you're 3 levels above them, which means they get to go up a level, because the only way they can progress is if you are a certain amount of levels higher than them. But it can still greatly bring down and slow down everything because you have a mob of people doing things. That's a lot. It's a lot to keep track of. It's a lot to do things. So it doesn't slow it down nearly as much if they are at a set location doing background things. Like getting a bunch of, it's like saving up money, buying a farm, using leadership to attract farmhands. If the party acquires some sort of stronghold, using the leadership feats to man the stronghold, so that way it stays maintained and the party doesn't have to stress it coming back and it being destroyed or having some monster live in it, because, well, guess what? There's NPCs doing their best to protect it. But it's also one of those feats that if your DM says no, don't try to argue with him, because he's only going to do everything he can to hinder it by simply going, okay, yeah, you have it, but no one's showing up. Because if the DM goes no, well, guess what? No. But it's around that time. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will try to finish out the feats next week. So there's a chance there's a couple more episodes left of just going over the feats. But again, thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday.